Well, hey there. We are live for day 4 on our 6-part series on early intervention. And welcome back. I can't believe we're on day 4. This has been an incredible journey, being able to step out of my comfort zone and to be here with you live, answering your questions. And it's actually been a lot of fun. And I'm already thinking about the next one to do. So if you have any suggestions, just let me know in the comment section below. Always looking for things to teach on when it comes to baby and toddler milestones and development. So just let me know. Okay, without further ado, we have quite a bit to discuss today. We are going to talk about evaluations and the IFSP meeting. And there's a lot of information in today's training just because it covers a lot of different components of both of those. So throughout, if you have any questions, just let me know. Also, if you feel comfortable, if you've been through the early intervention process with your little one, if you're getting ready to go through it, feel free to leave a comment in the chat or even in the comments below if you're catching this on the live. I would love for you to tell us your story and what that was like for you. Okay, so without further ado, why families trust me. I'm not going to go over this in depth. I went over this on day 1, but in a nutshell, I have been in the early intervention program for over a decade, servicing babies, toddlers, and families as a pediatric developmental therapist and also a service coordinator. So I have been able to see both sides of the early intervention program, which has helped me to be able to teach this to you. Because if I was not a service coordinator, I would not know the best practices. I wouldn't know what the process is, what paperwork is used. So I was able to see both sides, and it's been a true blessing to be able to help families in that manner. Okay, so here's our topics. We already went through day 1, which is should you call early intervention. Day 2 was referrals. Yesterday was intake, and today is the evaluation process. And tomorrow we're going to go ahead and talk about what happens if your child qualifies. So those ongoing services, the meetings, and also the exit meeting. And then day 6, we'll get into transition. Okay, so what has happened so far? Well, the first thing I want you to remember is early intervention is a birth to 36 months. So your little one ages out the day before their 3rd birthday. So keep that in mind. But I do tell parents, if your little one is close to 36 months and you have concerns, still please call and make that referral because we do help transition into the early intervention program. That would at least be something that we could help you do, even if we can't get ongoing services set up. So you have already called the early intervention program in your state to make the referral for your little one. You were contacted by a service coordinator in your area to schedule the intake meeting. The intake was completed either in person or by phone. And today is evaluation day and possibly the IFSP meeting day as well. And if you do have a baby or toddler that you have concerns for, here's a link down here that you can contact, or it gives a list of contacts to the early intervention program in your state. I will also leave it linked below in the description. And remember, parents can refer to the early intervention program. So you can call. You don't need to wait for a pediatrician's referral. Okay, so who evaluates your child at the evaluations? So you're always going to have a developmental therapist come in at the initial evaluation and also the annual assessment. You will have an annual assessment if your child is still within the range of early intervention and if they still are in the program. So you need the DT at both of those, and that's what I do. And I have mentioned before that a developmental therapist looks at 5 different areas of development. Those are adaptive, personal, social, communication, motor, and cognitive skills. And then, so you're always going to have that developmental therapist. And then depending on what your concerns are, you may also have a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. It just depends. So if the referral comes in from you or anyone else, you'll obviously let us know what's going on. And then remember how important it is to talk through everything you're concerned about at that intake, because that allows us to get the proper people set up. So let's say maybe your only concern is speech. So you will have a developmental therapist come out and also a speech therapist. Let's say maybe your child's toe walking or you have some sort of motor concerns, you would have the developmental therapist come out and the physical therapist. Let's say you have autism concerns or fine motor concerns or sensory processing concerns. You would have the developmental therapist come out and the occupational therapist. I actually worked with a team of therapists. There was a speech, OT, and physical therapist, and myself. And actually, we kept really busy because sometimes you need a developmental therapist, you need a speech therapist, you need an occupational therapist, and you need a physical therapist. So sometimes there are all four of us actually in the home with the families. So it just depends on your child's need. So what happens during the evaluation? And remember, it's based on Illinois in my state. So before COVID, everything was completed in person. So the therapist would come to your home to complete the evaluation or the assessment. And this is still the case, but more evaluations are actually being held online now. And let's see, the developmental therapist will join as well. As well as your concern. So like I told you, that speech, OT, PT, etc. The therapist will complete their standardized tests based on the intake paperwork, parent interview, and actually testing your little one. This is why reporting thorough information at the intake is so important. And I do notice that I have a misspelling right there. I will have to change that for my next one. And as a developmental therapist, I use something called the BDI-3. It's the Battelle Inventory 3, and it takes me about 45 minutes to complete my evaluation with the little one. Actually, the entire evaluation typically takes about 45 minutes as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the IFSP here in a minute, which is the meeting. So altogether, it's usually about an hour and 15 minutes if you're doing them at the same time. So about 45 minutes for the evaluations, and then about a half hour for the meeting. And then if there are any therapists listening or any families that have went through early intervention in different states, please comment below and let me know if this is still your process in a different state. I'm always looking for more information and how they are like broad across, early intervention versus based just per state. So that would be interesting to know. And then where are the evaluations completed? So this can be a couple different things. So how it's done in our areas, the developmental therapist and the other therapist arrive together and complete the evaluation in the family's home with you and your child. The service coordinator will then join after the evaluations are completed to have the IFSP meeting. And the service coordinator will join either in person or by phone or by video. And I don't know if I said this yet, but the IFSP stands for Individualized Family Service Plan. And then in some areas, because I service several different counties, so in my main area, we do it like I had just stated above, where I go in with another therapist, and then the service coordinator arrives after, so we get it done in one foul swoop. I also service another county that does it a little bit different. I actually complete my evaluation separate from the other therapist. I either do that in person or by video, and then the service coordinator sets up an IFSP meeting for a later date. And that usually is in person, by phone, or LVV, which is live video visit. So it really just depends on the state, or I guess the area that you're in. Okay, so what happens during the IFSP meeting? So after the evaluations are completed, the therapist will score their test and report their findings by giving you your little one's age equivalent and percentage delay based on kids their exact same age. So an example of this is your little one is 15 months, but they scored 9 months on the test for their expressive language section. That actually means that your little one is scoring at 9 months with a 40% delay based on other kids your child's age at 15 months. So for early intervention, you have to have a 30% delay or greater to even qualify for early intervention services. So at that point, your little one would definitely qualify for early intervention. We also take prematurity into consideration. If your child was born at 36 weeks or more, and we adjust for prematurity up to 24 months. So an example of this is taking the same child above. You have a 15-month-old that was born 8 weeks early, which is 2 months. That means that we will test your little one at a 13-month level. If they still scored a 9-month level, their percentage delay would be 31%, still qualifying them for services. And I know that was a lot of information. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it below. And I hope, guys, let me know if my audio and everything is working. You never know on these live streams. And then what happens during the IFSP meeting? So remember, we came in, we've evaluated your child, we've scored, and now we have the age equivalent and percentage delay. So during the IFSP meeting, once those scores are given to the family with a thorough explanation of the findings, the next step is to write goals and strategies so we can help your little one get from point A to point B. So these goals that we write will actually be reevaluated every 6 months, which is something that we'll talk about tomorrow. And then the team, which is the service coordinator and the therapist, then ask you as a family, based on our findings, what type of goal would be beneficial for your little one and what do you want to see them doing. So we kind of at that point, we obviously guide you through it, but we kind of put it in your hands so you can at least reiterate or tell us, what it is you want to see them doing over the next 6 months. So once you do voice your thoughts in how to move forward, we write professional goals and strategies. And then you will also get a copy of the goals and strategies that we write along with the therapist reports. We also discuss the frequency for ongoing services, which is typically 1 time per week, 2 times per month, or 1 time per month, just depending on your little one's scores and what the team deems necessary. If you do work in a school system, I did want to put this in here, you will see that the IFSP is very similar to the IEP, which is, the individualized education plan. Very similar. One is family-based, one is education-based. So once the goals and strategies are written, we ask the family if they have any other questions, and the therapist conclude their evaluation. This is when the service coordinator stays behind and has the family sign more paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork in early intervention, just to let you know. More so on the service coordinator's end, but families do sign a lot of papers. And then this is an example of a report that you will get, and nobody come at me. This is a fictitious report. I'm not violating any HIPAA compliance here. But I did want to show you what it looks like. I usually have about 3 to 4 pages. This is just the first page. And it's a completely in-depth summary report that you will get based on what, the therapist talked about during the evaluation. So this is something I would put out. I would put or give to the families. I would mark that I was a DT. And then I would have BDI 3 here because that's what I use. And then these are the different scores that I have. I would have the age equivalent here and the percentage delay. So we are rambling off a lot of things at the IFSP meeting, and I know it overwhelms families a lot. So just keep in mind that you're going to get everything that the service coordinator writes out as far as the goals and strategies, the frequency, and then you also get our reports. And then down here, we summarize the medical. We also divide this into the different sections and summarize on that as well. That's what the rest of the report is. And then, so what happens after the IFSP meeting? So after the evaluations, the service coordinator will find a therapist to work with your little one for ongoing services. Unfortunately, the problem we're having right now is there can be significant wait lists. That's just the reality of the program right now. As I'm doing this May 14th, 2026, we have more families that need services than a therapist. But once your service coordinator does find a therapist for you that has an opening, the therapist will contact you to get your first session set up with your little one. Ongoing services do happen in natural environments, such as the family's home, library, or the child's daycare. And then more information about ongoing services tomorrow. Okay, guys, Q&A time. So go ahead and drop any questions in the chat box or the comment section if you have any. If you have a topic that you want me to teach on, please let me know. And then if you want to connect with me, I always have my free and paid resources linked below. A lot of people are having fun taking the Milestone Mom style quiz that I have below. We have 4 different archetypes, so you'll get to see which one you are. Okay, let's go ahead. Let me check here really quick and answer some questions. Okay. Okay. Yesterday I forgot to do this. I want you to be able to see my face and not the slide. Again, guys, I hope this audio recorded and everything. If you're watching this on the live or on the replay, just give me a heart. Let me know that you can hear me and that you're enjoying listening to a thorough breakdown of early intervention. So what if my family doesn't cooperate during, wait a minute. Oh, so what if my child, sorry about that, doesn't cooperate during the evaluation? And I want to tell you that parents worry about this all the time, especially when you go to an appointment, you're like, be on your best behavior. Little ones can act different when we come into the home. We see it all the time, but honestly, we fully expect your little one to be shy, to move constantly, to cling to you, or to behave differently than they would, if it was just you and them in the home together. And that's completely normal. But this is why the parent interview portion is so incredibly important during that intake process and also the evaluations, because professional therapists, we're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for perfect performance from your little one. We're actually looking at patterns, different interactions. We're looking at their strengths. We're looking at their challenges, their developmental skills. Even when we are sitting there talking to the parents, getting the parent interview portion completed, there is a lot of observation going on that the therapist is doing, watching your little one closely, looking for those patterns I talked about, those interactions. So if your child does have an off day during the evaluation, it does not ruin it. In fact, even on those days, parents often are surprised when we give our full reports how accurate they are. That's because the parents have done a great job of reporting, good information that we need, along with obviously our testing tools and observations. So let's see, next question. Does qualifying for early intervention mean my child has autism or a lifelong diagnosis? And of course, the answer to this is no. And this is a really important misconception that I want to clear up. Qualifying for early intervention does not automatically mean autism, a lifelong disability, or a permanent diagnosis. Many children actually qualify, because they need temporary support in one or more developmental areas. And the purpose of the evaluation is to understand what support your child actually needs. And that's it. Some children receive services for a short period and make wonderful progress. Others have evaluations with professional therapists. The evaluations with professional therapist is an amazing way to get eyes on your little one, just in case there is more of a diagnosis situation that needs to be further looked into. So we can get your little one referred to the right specialist. And if we have concerns with autism, the therapist will be able to let you know that day if they think a referral to a developmental pediatrician is warranted. And the service coordinator will actually send that referral off for you. And then question number 3. How busy will I be when therapy starts? So I honestly think that depends on the severity of your little one's diagnosis and the support they need. For most families in early intervention, you might have, a therapist coming into your home one time a week for speech therapy. We are really big on meeting families where they are. So therapy often happens through play, meals, diaper changes, floor play, everyday routines. And one of the biggest goals of early intervention is actually coaching parents so strategies naturally fit into real life. So if a therapist is there one time per week, it is definitely helpful. But where the real magic happens is when parents implement throughout the week what is being taught in that session. And on the flip side, if you have a medically challenged kiddo, then your days will look a bit more full. On top of all the medical appointments with the medical specialists, you might have 3 to 4 therapies that you need to juggle each week in your home. And in those cases, life can get a little busy. In some cases, we can co-treat, which means a couple of therapists might come together and work with your child in one session versus 2 separate sessions. So let's see. Any other comments, guys? I think that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Tomorrow we are going to talk about, let's get back to that screen really quick. We're actually almost done with this. Tomorrow we're going to talk about what happens if your child qualifies. So we're going to talk about those ongoing services, the meetings, and then day 6 we'll talk about transition, which is transitioning your little one from early intervention program to that early childhood program in your home-based classroom. So it was fun hanging out with you guys again. Any questions or comments, leave them below, and have a really great rest of your day. All right, bye-bye.